Good morning, everybody. My name is Lotta Ricklander, and this is...
I'm Anna, yes.
Oh,
it's okay.
First of all, we want to thank you so much for inviting us to this very interesting conference. Even though we are not representing a SAI, we are representing the Swedish Association of Local Authorities and Regions. And we will shortly describe our Swedish system for local audit. And maybe this is a different perspective compared to your organizations and countries. First of all, a short presentation of Sweden. This is Sweden. We have about 10 million inhabitants. We have a constitutional monarchy. We have a parliament, the Riksdag. And Stockholm is the largest municipality. And we have 3 levels of democratic levels in Sweden. We have the nation of Sweden, and it's the parliament with 349 representatives, and the government. And in Sweden, the SAI are doing the audit of here for the authorities of the government. Then we have the regions, 20 of them, and we have 290 municipalities, quite much less than you in Hungary. And the municipalities in Sweden are very different. We have Stockholm, the biggest one, with about 900,000 inhabitants, and the smallest one, Bjurholm, has about 2,000 inhabitants. So it's a very different between. And we have elections for all these 3 levels every 4th year at the same day. This is the task of the municipalities. As you see, there's a lot of different tasks. The biggest part, probably as in your countries, is social services and education. In economic terms, it could be about 80% of the costs in a municipality. And the regions, they have healthcare, regional development, infrastructure, and here the healthcare is the absolute major part of the tasks. In some regions, infrastructure could be very important as well, as in Stockholm region. And just to show you the self-government of the municipalities in Sweden are very, very strong. If you look at the revenues of the municipalities and the regions, you see that about 70 to 75% of the income is taxes, local taxes. And it's only about 15% coming from the government grants. So that is a very important picture then when we are going to talk about the local audit, because municipalities are not at all dependent of the state in their revenues. And our organization, the Swedish Association of Local Authorities and Regions, it's an organization that represents all the municipalities and regions. And our primary task is to negotiate with the government, the national government, for the municipalities and regions. And we are located in Stockholm, and we are about 400 or 500 people working in this organization to serve all the municipalities and regions. And in audit, we are deciding about the code of audit in local government. So that is we don't do audit in this organization, but we work with the code. And now, Anna?
So I will continue and tell you some specific details about the audit, since it is a bit different from when it's the Supreme Audit Institution that does the audit. Here there are, you could say, 290 plus 20 different audits that are made every year, because the audit is locally owned. That means that it is the council in each organization that receives the audit, and they don't spread it to someone else. National government is not interested in the results of the audit, nor is the Supreme Audit Institution. They never ask. We have similar systems to the Swedish one in Norway, Denmark, Finland, all the Nordic countries, but also in the UK, the Netherlands. I guess you know this since you've done some studies on municipal audit before. But our Supreme Audit Institution can go and look in the municipalities or in the regions sometimes, especially if they want to follow up on national government's governance of healthcare, or because the parliament decides on the laws, and the national government can have some different initiatives, and then they have to go look at the hospitals and so on. But it's always to place accountability in the national level. So the Supreme Audit Institution can never place accountability in the municipalities or the regions. This is Swedish municipality or region. All of them are governed in the same manner. Every fourth year we have elections to the council. So the citizens elect the council. And the council elects, the first group that they elect are the auditors. And they are politically elected. They also elect an executive board and committees. So usually there could be a committee for schools, one committee for healthcare, one committee for care of the elderly, and so on. And we also have municipal companies. We have a lot of municipal companies, around 1,500 in total. And the audit of the municipal companies is split in two ways. So there are two different laws that govern the audit of the municipal companies. They are audited by chartered accountants, like a normal private company, but also by representatives from the municipality that look into the municipality perspective. And it's also very important to mention, since our system is very heavy in democratic value, the goal of the audit is to place accountability each year, and only politicians have only the politicians are accountable, so no civil servants are accountable to the council. In our Local Government Act, the civil servants are invisible. So it's only the politicians who are responsible for all the decisions, and also to, at the end of the year, be accountable to the council. So the purpose of the audit is stated in law, of course, in the Local Government Act, and we will have a new act from 2018 in which the system of audit is, it continues to be in the same way. Since the system is a bit special, it often gets questions from abroad and from within. Is it independent enough, or how can it be arranged in this way? The government has investigated this a lot of times, but they have now once again decided that this is a good system. So from the 1st of January, it continues as usual. As I said, it's really heavy on the democratic value. So since we have self-government, this is a way that the legislator has decided that the audit should be. It should be part of showing to the citizens what has worked and what has not worked during this year, the last year. So the council elects at least 5 political auditors, but the municipality who has the most has around 20. Yeah, 22. The city of Gothenburg. Yeah. It's very important here to mention that they have to be assisted by professional auditors. So no politically elected auditors can do scrutiny or audit by themselves. They have to use professional auditors. And the professional auditors, they normally work with the big firms. So in Sweden we have 4 on the public market, PwC, KPMG, Deloitte, and EY. And they can be certified public accountants or certified public auditors, or they can be chartered accountants. And all the scrutiny that they do and that the public, politically elected auditors stand for is made according to this code of audit in local government that our organization decides upon every 4th year. A very important part of this code is the rule of conduct that has to do with independence. And I guess you understand that since the audit is also in some ways internal and not external only, it's very important that the auditors are independent. And that means that the executive board and the committees cannot interfere with the scrutiny or the audit. So the auditors, they choose independently what to audit. They choose independently which methods and which experts, although the experts have to be chartered accountants or certified public accountants. And the auditors also make independent judgments. And they are not allowed to be party political. It's very important part of this system. Otherwise, it would be very fragile. The task, which is also in the Local Government Act, is that the auditors and the professional auditors, of course, they have to audit all activities that the executive boards and the committees, as well as the municipal companies, perform every year. And that's a very, very big task. So they base their scrutiny on a risk assessment every year. So where they find the biggest risks that the committees or the board cannot reach the wishes of the council, the auditors should look the most. The audit is, of course, financial audit. It's almost always performed by chartered accountants according to the international standards of auditing. We do have a national discussion right now if that is the best standard. We would like to have it a bit more adopted to the public sector. They also do performance audits and what you could call compliance audits, even though it's not that very big. And they have to follow these 3 tasks. So they have to every year decide if the operations have been performed consistently with the purpose stated by the council, national laws, and in a financially satisfactory manner. So you could call it value for money. They also have to give recommendations to the council if the internal control has been adequate and if the accounts are correct. And the results of the audit is always handed to the council, it's always handed to the committees and the executive board. It's in full transparency, since we have a principle of public access in Sweden. All documents, information, everything about civil servants and politics is always public to anyone who wants to look. Also, the work of the auditors is always transparent and public. At the end of each year, the auditors make their final audit report, and in it they have a judgment of accountability. So they can give a remark to an executive board or a committee if they feel that there's been some areas that have not worked that very well. And they can also discharge from liability. And this is like the crown of our audit every year, is that the council every year decides on discharge from liability or not. So the politicians are either free or not free. And if they're not free, they can be let go by the council. They can be released from their mission. So we added this slide on added value since for us, I mean, it's hard to talk about added value outside of the audit because our system is very, it's very important for us to always keep the independence. But the auditors always give recommendations in the audit reports. Sometimes they can arrange training in issues that feel very close to audit, so internal control, anti-corruption, things like that. But their code of conduct prevents them from engaging in governance issues. Because in our code, it says that if you engage in governance issues, it will be very hard for you to the following year audit that same governance that you had recommendations about. So we try to keep it very separate. But as a normative actor, we can be more engaged in spreading results from audit, working with best practice models, working with regional networks. And we do our best to also engage the executive boards and representatives from the owner of the municipalities to help them work more efficiently. But what we do has mostly to do with audit, but it's different. I mean, this year we have a special project on risk assessments and audit of co-owned municipal companies, because 2 or 3 or several municipalities can own companies together, and it becomes a difficult task for auditors who is looking where and how to arrange it in a practical manner. So that's one of our development issues this year. Okay, so this is the final picture, and we're very happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much my name is Laura Tance, I'm from Spain, and thank you very much for your presentation. It has been very interesting because it's completely different than the system. So it's very interesting for me to listen to us. My question is about your organization. I would like to know if your organization is a private association or is a public or private organization. So if you are civil servant or you are private employees, and on the other hand, the relationship, maybe there is a relationship or no, I don't know, with the Supreme Audit Institution of Sweden.
We are not hired by the state, but we are, you could say, hired by all the municipalities and regions together. So we are a private organization because we're a member organization that the municipalities and regions have arranged. So they are our employers, you could say. So we're semi-public. But if you look at it from a legal framework, we're just an association, private association, like any other. And did you have another question? Yes. I know that a few years ago we had more to do with the site before we started working at the Salar. Right now, not that much, but we do meet each other. Our Supreme Audit Institution is quite new. It's around 10 to 15 years old. And they have had a lot of drama with change in auditor generals. And I think that's part of the perspective, that we haven't really found the ways to cooperate better. But we're very interested in cooperating with them. Also because we see that we have a common interest in how to face the private audit firms.
My name is Franz Berger, I'm from Austria, and I'm here with Eurori. I have one question. You said that the work of the auditors is transparent and public. What do you mean by that?
It means that besides from all the audit reports, I mean, the reports are made public when the auditors decide that they're finished. So they normally have meetings around once a month, and if there's an audit report that is finished, they decide it's now finished, and then it's public. So anyone can access the report. Then after each year, all the documents that are still existing, like notes, interview notes, anything can be looked into by anyone who wants to. So journalists, citizens, you guys, anyone.
You say that the council elects auditors,
Yes.
political auditors, and then they make their own teams that audit the city of Stockholm, whatever. Are these teams the same every year? Or?
Yeah, they are for the whole period. So we have elections every 4th year.
No.
Oh.
I mean, if they audit the city of Stockholm,
Yes.
they do the financial audit every year, no?
Yes.
Is the audit team the same every year?
You mean from the private companies
Yes,
that
yes,
assist them?
yes.
It depends.
It's like a contract they are doing with the...
It's always done with public procurement, so it
Okay.
depends on the.
Can be by the
Contract.
mandate of the...
It could
of
be
council?
the normal would be that they do it for 2 + 2 years or 3
Okay.
+ 1 or yeah.
I understand, thank you.
Mm.
I believe it depends on the term of the contract
Yes,
that is
yes.
procured before.
Yes.
And the normal practice would be change auditors time by time, I believe. Yes, there's another question, Austria.
Richard from Austria, but from the SAI Austria, not on a Euro right term. I want to continue on the question from Romania. You told us that the auditors are political elected, but then they don't act party political. Now, as a well-educated Austrian, I would say this is illegal and hence was very normative perspective. And from my personal experience, empirics would look slightly different. What's the situation in Sweden?
Can you ask the question again? Because I didn't hear everything.
You told us that the auditors on the municipality level are politically elected on the one hand, and on the other hand, they do not act party political. So I guess that's the legal perspective and henceforth quite normative. How about empirics? Do they really switch off the politician inside of them, act completely neutral for 4 years, and then at the next election switch on the politician again? It's a bit hard to believe, so to speak.
It's the eternal question in our system. But there are different mechanisms that are supposed to help them to be not political. So the first one is the code of conduct. It says in a book that's quite big how they should act. The second one is a kind of a culture that I would say all of them actually do have. They try to not be party political. So trying is quite good. But the system dates from like 200 years back. And it's to do with citizen representations. You could say it's almost a kind of citizen participatory audit that we have, although it's the council that elects them, and the easiest way to find these citizens was to go through the political parties. But they're not allowed to be members of the council, they're not allowed to be members of any committee, but they are allowed to meet and hang out with the other party friends. So it's always a kind of, are they independent? Are they not independent? I guess in most places it actually works. Since they also have professional auditors that help them, it's not that easy for them to go ahead and do a completely different thing. And they also represent normally all the parties in the council in their group. So if someone is very political, maybe the others can help that person to not be that political because they have different opinions. So, this is the biggest fear of everyone who doesn't like our system in Sweden. But actually, it's not one of the biggest problems when we look into it. There could be other problems that are worse, that the municipalities don't give enough money to them or things like that. But in some way, it actually works.
Thank you. Lithuania, please.
Thank you for a brief presentation. And I have a question regarding the evaluation of the quality and control of the work of these auditors you have in your system. Maybe your organization or any others. Are there any evaluations made in your country regarding the quality of audits performed by these auditors? And that would be one part of my question, yes. And another part is maybe not even a question but invitation, because in our task force, one of our goals is to make the external audit system more efficient, and we currently started the analysis of various external audit systems existing in the countries who are members of our task force, but also we are interested in the practice of other countries. We found your system is very interesting and very useful, so I just would like to ask you, maybe we could also cooperate with you, and you could provide us also and share with us your experience on the system, how it is organized, so that we could also include it from you, as we also cooperating with Eurori, and we hope that maybe cooperation with you could also bring benefits to not only to us, but maybe it will be useful also to you.
Well, thank you. We're very happy to cooperate. For us, it's very important to look internationally and to find cooperations and also see different other perspectives, how can it work in other places and so on, to be in the front and seeing how public audit should work. Because I think even though we're not the SAI, we have the same interest, and that is to give the local level the best audit that they can have. So that is for us always been the main issue. How can we get the best audit from the current situation? But your first question is actually very, very relevant to us, because we have a kind of national debate on, what do you call it, quality control of audits. It's not an easy question, because since we have self-government in Sweden, and we're very proud self-governments, the municipalities and the regions, the question is who can make the quality control of someone who is self-governed. So the state it's complicated that someone from the state should come and see if our auditors did or did not do the best audit. Even though we have a national agency, the audit inspection, it's not the Supreme Audit Institution, it's another agency, and they make quality controls in the private audits. And they're very interested in extending this also to public authorities. And we have discussions with them, because we can see that it could add quality to the audit if the professional auditors were under quality control. But it's hard to have quality control over someone who is politically elected and is there to not be objective, if you know what I mean. Because they have, within our system, they have the right to be subjective. So their opinions should be based on facts. Their scrutiny should be made according to the Code of Local Government and other standards, like international audit standards and stuff like that. But at the end of the year, when they decide if they want to give a remark to the board or not, they're actually allowed to be only humans and have an opinion. And it's impossible to have a quality control over that part. But the other part, if they follow the international standards, if they follow the national standards, all of that could be under quality control. So it isn't right now, but I think probably it will be in maybe 10 years.
My name is Edgar Tines. I'm from Eurori, from Spain. My question goes to the financial part of the audits that are performed. We all know that the Big Four, they do not work for free. And if I see that the audit remit includes that everything has to be audited every year, once per year, and small municipalities, they have to comply with this. So is there any financial issue for small municipalities that they have to contract Big Four in order to perform their task?
It's one of our big topics that we work with, that the small municipalities sometimes have trouble in financing the audit every year. But since it's public procurement and the private companies always often win an assignment by lowering the price, we've seen a kind of development where it gets cheaper and cheaper, and we are afraid that less and less is being done. So we work hard with them to try and have the same view of the system, and to also maybe find like the lowest level of how much can it cost. But it is, of course, an important question.
Thank you very much. Let us all thank the speakers once more.